Hey, I need to take a note.
What would you like to make a note about?
Research is a creative, systematic work undertaken to increase the stock of knowledge.
Note saved successfully. Would you like to save another note?
Yes.
What would you like to add to the notes?
A researcher is a person engaging in the conduct of research.
The note was saved again. Would you like to save another note?
No. I'd like to take a screenshot of this page.
Screenshot was saved.
And now let's go check and see how good of a job it did. So here's our screenshot, which just saved to our desktop. And we can check out our notes. So what we're going to do in this video is we're actually going to create this AI assistant that is going to use OpenAI as our backend, as our actual artificial intelligence. So if we have something that we need to ask a question of that we don't necessarily immediately know the answer of, we can ask it a question and it will go out to OpenAI and get that answer from ChatGPT, the engine or the brain that is running ChatGPT. And then also we're going to be able to be doing research like this right here. We're on this Wikipedia page doing this research, and maybe we want to take a note, and we can just say, hey, I want to take a note, and it's going to ask, what do we want to save this note about? And it's going to save that note, and maybe we want to take a screenshot, and then it will screenshot that page for us. So the reason I actually decided to write this little program here was I was doing some research and I was getting annoyed because I had to keep on reading a page and only had one screen at the time, and I would have to read the page, flip over to my notes and type it out, and I couldn't just copy paste because it was such a big amount of information that I wanted to actually like take notes just briefly. And I decided it'd be easier if I could just talk to my computer and it would ask me, do I want to take notes? Would I like to add additional notes? Do I want to take a screenshot? And I thought this would be so much easier just to have a program for when I'm doing research. It would save me a lot of time. Then I can go back and organize my notes later. So what we're going to do in this video is create this program that you just saw, and you're going to have your very own copy. Now, as always, if you get stuck or maybe your code has a bug in it and you can't find it, all of the code for this program is going to be saved on my GitHub page. You can find the link to my GitHub in the description, but I do recommend you go through the video anyway so you can debug your own code. I do get a lot of emails or messages from people telling me that their code isn't working, and I actually walk you through how to fix these problems in the video. So I do encourage you, if you're having any problems, to watch the video before you post any kind of comment saying that it isn't working, because it is really common for people to ask me questions that I answer in the video, and it does take time out of my day to have to go point you to the right place in the video, and it would just be easier if you watched it in the first place. But anyway, if you know what you're doing, you can go down, copy that code, paste it into your favorite editor, and you can run it. Now let's go ahead and jump into the video. We're going to need to get an API key from ChatGPT or OpenAI. So what you can do is just come over here and say ChatGPT API key, and you'll be brought to this one right here, the one that says platform.openai.com. So you can click on this. You will need to sign up if you do not have an account yet, and I already have an account, so I'm going to go ahead and log in, and I'll bring you back at the main homepage. And once you're logged in, I'm not really sure what page you're going to be brought to. This is the one that I was brought to. You can just click on the API keys down here. And for those of you who just created it, you get 6 months with something like 10,000 requests. So you got a lot of requests. You don't have to worry about running out. And you can come down to the API key and you're going to click create a secret key and you're going to click create. And a lot of you are going to be saying, why would you put your API key out? I will just delete this API key once this video is done, so don't try to use it, or you can try to use it and it's not going to do you any good. But I'm going to delete this, and then once you have your secret key, you need to copy it and save it somewhere, because once you close out of this with done, there's no way to see this API key anymore. It's gone. So you click done, and you're not going to be able to see that API key anymore. So I'm going to come back over here to our PyCharm, and we are going to just delete all of this, and I'm going to paste in that API key, and then I'm going to comment it out, and I think it's control, it is command question mark, and it should comment out our API key. But actually what we can do instead of just commenting it out is just come down here and we'll just say API underscore key equals, and then we'll have this API key stored in a variable, which we are going to need. And the reason this is underlined is because it needs quotes. So we'll just go ahead and throw some quotes around it, and we're going to import some modules now. So we're going to import OS, we're going to import time, we will import Pi audio, and we'll also import play sound. We're going to use these to play our sound, and then we're going to import GTTS from GTTS like this. This is just a Google text-to-speech, so it's going to take what we say, Google's going to run it through our text, which we say, it's going to take it to speech, and then it's going to say it back to us. And then we're going to import OpenAI as in order to use our API key, and this is going to be our AI for us. So now we are going to need to actually import one more thing. We need to import speech recognition, and I think I have that spelled right, and we're going to import it as SR, just like this. Now, you're going to notice that these are squiggly lined, and it is because we need to import these modules, and so we're going to use pip. If you don't know if you have pip, you can just open up a terminal by clicking this down here. You can just type in pip and hit enter, and if it works, then you have pip. If not, this also works with pip3. You can just type in pip3, and if you get this output, then it works for you. And pip should work for you because you just installed PyCharm, and it should install pip for you. So you should have pip or pip3 depending on PyCharm when you installed it, or you might have both like I do. Or on a Windows, you can install Pi Audio by typing in pip install Pi Audio like this. And if that doesn't work for you, I guess I have that typed out wrong. And if that doesn't work for you, you can come back and you can type in pip install pip win, and then you're going to run pip win to install Pi Audio. So it will look like this: pip win install Pi Audio, and that should work for you. So if you're on a Mac, this is going to be a little more challenging. You're probably going to have to go out and install Brew or Homebrew, but we can also try that, and you can try pip install Pi Audio. And if this doesn't work for you and you're on a Mac or you're on Linux, you might need to run pip install port audio like this. And then if you're not able to install port audio, you're going to have to go out to Homebrew and install Homebrew, and I'll show you how to install that now. What you'll do is you'll come out here and you're going to copy this right here, and we'll come back to our text editor and open that up. We will paste in what we had just copied. You will run this, and we're going to type in our password, and that should run. We want to run it, and it's going to tell us that we need to put this in our path. Okay, what you'll need to do is scroll up to where you see this next steps right here, and it's going to tell you to run these two commands. And what you can do is just highlight this entire thing right here from the echo all the way down here to this last quote, and you will copy that and you will paste it into your terminal, and you will hit enter, and it will go ahead and put Brew in your path, and then you'll be able to use Homebrew to finish the installation of Pi Audio and Port Audio. And we're going to install Port Audio by just typing in Brew install Port Audio, just like this. Should be able to run it, and it will install Port Audio. I already have it installed, but after that's done, you can type in Brew install Pi Audio, and that should install Pi Audio for you. And now you will have Pi Audio and Port Audio installed, and we can continue installing the rest of our packages. The rest of these are really simple. We just go pip install play sound, and it's going to install play sound. And then we're going to do the same thing for Google Text-to-Speech, and it will install, and that is finished. So now we can say pip install GTTS, and your GTTS needs to look like this, or it won't install the correct package. And now we can go pip install, and our speech recognition has a capital S and a capital R, just like this. And we'll let that run. I probably spelled this wrong. Let's try again, speech, and I spelled recognition, so we can try this again, and it will go ahead and install for us. Now we should have everything installed. So we have an issue here with how we imported this. This is actually going to look like this: from GTTS import GTTS like that. And now we have this typed in right. Sorry for that mistake. So we have our API key right here. I'm going to be working with the language English, so I can just type in lang equals en, and I'm pretty sure this needs to be in single quotes, so we can say en, and move outside the tab, and we can go down. And we're going to set a variable for our open API key. So we can say open API dot API key equals our API key. All right, we have a few more things we need to import here. We need to import py auto GUI just like this. And we'll also need to import pi, and it is tesseract like this. And then from PIL import image. And I believe we're going to need to actually do some more installing to finish these out. So the first one is going to be pip install pi tesseract like this, and then we can hit enter, and then we're going to need to go pip install, and it is capital P pillow just like this, and yes, we meant install, so we'll let that run. Then we need to pip install pi auto GUI and let that one run, and I believe that should be it here for us. Okay, one last thing I forgot. We need to do a sudo apt install scrot just like this. And we're going to say, yes, it's fine for it to take up extra space. And this might actually take a second for it to load, but that should be it for us here. Also need to go pip install, and it is capital P pillow just like this. And yes, we meant install, so we'll let that run. Okay, so it looks like we are finally ready to start writing some code. So the first thing we need to do is set up our microphone. So we can just say microphone equals sr.microphone, and then we're going to, for me, I'm going to be setting this to device index number 1 because that's where I'm going to be using my microphone through. If you are using your internal speakers to your computer, you might want to try 0. If you have a bunch of different stuff plugged into all of your USB ports, then you might have to play around. This index, I believe, goes up to 9. So you might have to try 0 through 9 until you're actually able to find the right microphone input. So my input is number 1. Now we're going to set up our function for it to actually talk to us. So we want it to actually speak to us. So we're going to say def, and we want to play the audio. So this is going to be the function. It's going to receive some kind of text. And because this isn't PyCharm, I can't tab out of that. So we want our variable to be speech, and we're going to be using Google Text-to-Speech. So GTTS, and it's going to take an input of our text, and it's going to equal the text. And then we want our language to just be language. And actually, the way I have this set up, we have our language right here, and it's going to be English. You can change that if you would like to. And then we want it to speak fast, so we're going to say slow equals false. And then this is going to be the accent you want it to have. I always use the accent of the Australian lady. That variable all set up. So now we want to save the speech. So we're going to say speech.save, and we're going to save it into an MP3 file. So we're going to say output.mp3, and now we're going to want it to play the sound that it actually takes in. So play sound.play-sound, and we want it to play the output. So we're going to say output.mp3. So that way it will actually play the sound back to us. So I believe that function is all set up now. So let's go ahead and actually make it talk to us. And we're just going to set up our while loop. And this is going to be our while loop for getting audio. So we're going to call a function, and we're going to call it get audio. And we're going to use our speech recognition from up here that we have imported. So we're going to say r equals sr.recognizer, just like that. So now we're going to say with microphone. So with microphone as our source, we want to do something. So we are going to say audio equals r.listen, and we want it to listen to our source. So our microphone is going to be listening, and we're going to save everything that we say into a variable, which is going to start out as our empty string. So sed is going to be empty string, and then we're going to save everything into it as we take it. So now we're going to create a try. So we're going to say try sed equals r dot recognizer. We're going to use right here recognize Google, and we're going to use our audio data is not what we have a variable called. Our variable is right here. It's called audio. Now this line is going to save inside of this sed variable everything that is taken in right here. So what we take in is going to be saved right here. And we can print this just so we can make sure that it's working. So we can print the sed variable. And we're going to need to make another variable. If you remember from our Jarvis creation, I use the variable guy equals empty string. We have to make this guy right here a global variable. So we come down here and we're going to say global, and that is going to be our variable guy. We declare that, and now we're going to use him, and we're going to say guy equals whatever was said, and we're going to use this in just a minute. So let's go ahead and test this out. Sometimes whenever I'm writing a program and I get frustrated, I want some encouragement. So we'll just say if I say the word suck, and that is my substitute for the other word that sounds like suck, is in sed, then we want to play the audio, and we're going to make it read to us. And we're going to say, I am sorry you are frustrated. Okay, so I noticed my audio up here wasn't working because I was using this Bluetooth mic right here to speak into the camera. So the audio probably changed because I'm now using this microphone right here. So that way my mic on my Linux machine will actually work for me here, because I want to test this out to make sure that this is working. So now we know that it's able to take in information and spit information back to us, or at least the audio. But before we do, there is one more thing we need to do. Because we have this try right here, we're going to need an except. So we are going to type in an except, and we're going to give it an exception, and we're going to say exception as E, which is pretty typical, and then we're going to say print, and we want to print the exception that we just created, exception, and we're going to print the string, the E as a string, so we'll say string, and this E, we're going to pass through this E right here. And the reason we do that is so if we get an exception, it'll actually give us the information of like what's actually going wrong in the program. And now we need to call the function, and we're going to end up calling this through a while loop. So that way it just continually loops through our program. So if we're doing something and we want to randomly ask a question, it'll be listening automatically. So we're going to say while true, we're going to want it to do something. So we're going to say if the word stop is in sed, then we're going to have it stop, and we're going to say break. But if that's not in there, we're going to have it continually call this function right here, get audio. So we can just say get audio. So that should call the function. And now if we run this, this should work for us. And if we say the word suck, it should tell us, I'm sorry, you're frustrated. So if we click run, it tells us sed is, oh, I see my problem. So because sed is in here, it's saying it's not defined. This is why we had to create this global variable for our input. So we're going to use guy, our global variable, which is going to be the same thing as sed. That should work for us. We'll go ahead and save it. Now if we run this, it gives us our ASL is failing. It's probably now recording everything that I'm saying. So I'm going to wait for it to go ahead and recycle, and then we'll say the word suck, and it should give us, I'm sorry you're frustrated. Suck.
I am sorry you are frustrated.
And there it is. And so we know that it's working. I'm going to go ahead and close out of it with the Command C instead of saying the word stop. And so now we know that it's taking in what we're saying and giving us back a response. We can set up the AI portion of this now, where it's actually going to use our API key right here that we created and it's going to go out to OpenAI and give us a response for something we want. Right now, if we ask it to do anything like write us a poem, it's not going to be able to do that. So we will go ahead and just create that little function in here. This is going to be probably the most complicated portion of the code that we're going to write, because you actually need to go out to OpenAI, read the documentation if you want to be able to understand what exactly we are about to do. So now inside here, we're going to make an elif statement, and we're going to say elif. And if you've seen my previous video, then you know I used Friday. So if Friday is in the sed variable, then we want to do something, and we're going to want a new string, and we're going to delete the word Friday. So we're going to say new string, and we're going to tell it equals, and it's going to equal sed, and we're going to type in dot replace, and we want to replace Friday with an empty string. and that will delete the word Friday, because if you say Friday and then whatever you have to say, it's actually going to send that out to OpenAI and it's going to have that in your request, and we don't want that in our request. So that is what that line right there is doing. So we can actually print the new string so that way we can see what it looks like, and I accidentally added 2 sets of parentheses. So we can print our new string so we see what it looks like. And now here comes the more confusing part of this code, and that is only because we have to set up us as the user and then OpenAI as the backend. So we'll go ahead and type this out, and then I'm going to walk you through it and explain what is going on. Okay, so this is going to be our variable. It's going to be completion, and we have to make this a variable right here because we want to grab the first part of the choice that it actually gets back from OpenAI, and then we have the message content, and then we're going to play it. So this right here, the completion, is going to go to OpenAI. It's going to go to the chat. It's going to create a model. So it's going to create a new conversation. And in this conversation, we're going to be using GPT 3.5 Turbo. And the message we're going to be sending is us as the user and the content of whatever we said. So that is probably the most complicated part of any of the code that we're going to be writing. So you can go ahead and pause the video and copy that down, or you can go out to GitHub and copy and paste it. But let's keep going, and actually let's test this out and make sure it works. So we can now run our program. Friday, write a haiku about Bill Gates.
Ingenious Realms saw Bill Gates, tech visionary, unleashing new worlds.
And so there we have it. Our program now will go out to OpenAI, and we can do anything that ChatGPT will do with our program, as well as add in some of our functionality. So now we're going to go ahead and write the portion of the code that we want it to actually take notes. So let's say we are out doing something and we need to be doing some research and we need to record some notes. We want to say take notes, and then whatever we say, it's going to record it. And if we need to screenshot a page, we're going to be able to verbally say screenshot, and it will save our screenshot. So what we can do now is we have all of this working. We're going to need to actually start by creating some more functions at the top. And we want to first just start with creating a note. And so it's going to save our notes to our desktop in a text file. So we can just call our function note. We'll call it note file, just like that. And we're going to need to tell it with open, so that way it will open our file. And we're going to tell it we want to open the file through the file path that we're going to give it here in just a second. And we're going to open with A, and we're going to say as F, which is what you're going to see when you use, typically when you use with open, you're going to open as F. And we're going to want our F, which is going to be our file. We want to write, and we want to write a note. And every note we make, we're going to want it to be on a new line. So every time we say we want a note, it's going to ask, would you like another note? And if we say yes, then we want that new note to be on a new line. So we're going to add in this, and the reason that's not working for me is because I don't have quotations, and that should add our new note on a new line. And I think actually what we'll have to do is we're going to just end up doing this twice. So this is our note file. We'll actually say create, because if we don't have one already created, I believe we're going to get an error, but we're going to need this to create the first time. And then after that, we're going to call the function just note file, so that way it reopens that same note and continues to save all of our future notes in that one note file until we're done with whatever project we're in. So we're going to need this create file, and then we're going to need just a note file, which is going to reopen this one if we need it to in the future. So let's come down and create another elif. I actually think we'll create this one up here so that way we can kind of see our functions as we're typing. So we'll just say if note is in said, so the information that we say. So if we're talking to our AI and we say note, we want it to do something. And so we're going to just print opening note file, and then we want it to do something. So we're going to have it play audio. So it's going to request something to us because this program is going to be running in the background. When we say note, we want it to respond to us. So that way we know that it's actually working. So we'll actually have it respond to us. So we'll have it say, what would you like to make a note about? And we're going to have it listen through our microphone. So we're going to say note audio equals r.listen, which should be starting to look more familiar to you at this point. So we have our source, and then we want it to print that it is saving the note. So we'll print note saved, so that way we can actually see that it does something. And then we actually want it to respond to us and ask, would we like to save another note, and that this note was saved successfully. So we'll say play audio, and we want it to say note was saved successfully, and we want to create the file path. So up here we have this file path, so now we want to make that file path that we want to save the note to. So we can just say file path equals os.path expand user, and the path we want to save this to, this will need to be in quotes, and we're going to use the squiggly line so that way it goes to the relative path, and we're going to say desktop, and we're going to call it just notes.txt. And now we're going to call our function create note, and we're going to pass in our note as well as our file path. So we should be able to test this out and see if it is actually able to save our note. So let's go ahead and run this. Note.
What would you like to make a note about?
I would like to know if this is working.
Note was saved successfully.
So it looks like that did not actually save to our desktop. I'm going to try and debug this and figure out where it's saving our note to. I'll actually make that lowercase, and then I'll bring it back and let you know where my error was at. Okay, first off, this is why you don't copy and paste. This is right, not wire, and because I copied and pasted my code, I copied and pasted one bug and made it two. So this is right. Okay, so it looks like we did not pass through these parameters right here into our function that we called. So I went ahead and passed those in, and I also missed this line of code. So we need to actually recognize what was said. So we have the no audio right here that's being passed through, and it needs to be recognized by Google. So it's taking in what we said and saving it in this variable after it's been recognized by Google text-to-speech. So this should work for us at this point, I hope. Cross our fingers, hit play. Note.
What would you like to make a note about?
To see if this is working. And you can see up here we have our note working finally. So it's saying to see if this is working. Finally is working. So there was kind of a few typos in there. If you're having any problems, you can go check out the GitHub page, and you can just copy and paste this little if statement right here, and you should have it without any errors. So let's continue working on this. Now that we know our note is working, we need to try and run it a second time and make sure that it adds to this with another line. So let's go ahead and run it again. Note.
What would you like to make a note about?
Point number 2.
Note saved successfully.
Let's open up our file, and it did save point number 2 there on a second note. And I actually think we don't even need this second function right here. Let me actually comment that out, and actually let's run it again and make a third note and see if it works. Note.
What would you like to make a note about?
Point number 3.
Note saved successfully.
And it did save point number 3, only it typed in phone number 3, but that's okay. So it looks like it is working, so we don't actually even need that second function. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete it and clean this up just a little bit. And now we can close our program, move on to, let's say we make a note and we want to continue reading, or we're doing something, and we want it to ask us, would you like to save another note to this additional note? So let's say we want to make like bullet points, and we want to say point number 1, whatever the note is, point number 2, whatever the note is, and we want it to make a new line break every single time we add a new point. We can come down here and we can add a while statement, and it's actually going to be inside the if statement. So we're going to say while true, we want to have it ask us, would we like to save another note? So we're going to say play audio, delete that, and we're going to ask ourselves, would you like to save another note? And you can add a question mark in if you would like, and then we're going to add another note. So we're going to make another variable, and it's going to be another note audio, and it should be familiar to you by now, r.listen, and we're going to listen through our source, which is going to be the microphone, which is going to be your device index that you set earlier, and we're going to have that does not need to be on that line. And so we're going to now save our response. So we're going to save response equals, and we're going to use this right here, this r.recognize. So we can copy paste, remembering copy and paste sometimes can be really bad because sometimes you end up copying pasting multiple bugs and you end up just putting them all over in your code. And so we want to now add another note, which is actually the function we just deleted. So we'll just type in another note. And so we have our another note right here. That's where I get that from. So we have that response, and we're going to say if yes is in the response. So if yes, then we want to have it play the audio and ask us what do we want to add. So play audio. What would you like to add to the notes? And we're going to have it listen to us again. So we're going to say note audio equals r.recognize Google right here. And we're going to have another note audio. So that way it can take what we just said and it can save it. So this right here, another note audio, Google Text-to-Speech is going to recognize it. And we want to do something with it. I actually skipped a line. We need to do the same thing right here with the source. So we need to come down here and say note audio equals r.listen, and we're going to have it listen to the source, and we're going to change this to just note. Change our variable there. And now we want to add our note to our path. So we want to add the note, which let's see, this is create note. We want to add a note. So we might actually put our function back in there and test to see if it works. So we'll just type this in here. I don't even remember what we called that. We'll just call it add note. And we're going to pass in the note and the file path. And then we want it to play audio and tell us the note was saved again. And then it should loop back up here and ask us if we would like to save another note. And then we're going to add in an else, and we're going to say else, and we'll break the while loop. So let's go ahead and give this a try. But before we do, I forgot we need to create another function. So we can come up here. This is where we're going to create our note. But now we want to actually pass through the note and the file path, and this is not auto finishing because I'm not defining this as a function. So file path, and we want to do the same thing we did before with that. So that looks right to me. So let's go ahead and run this and see if we can get it to create a note and then loop through our while loop that we just created and ask us would we like to add anything to this note. So let's open up our note. We will delete all of that. We will save it so that way we have our empty note. We can hit play. Note.
What would you like to make a note about?
First point.
Note saved successfully. Would you like to save another note?
Yes.
What would you like to add to the notes?
A second point.
The note was saved again. Would you like to save another note?
Negative. And that closes our program. Let's open up our notes. And we have point number 1 and point number 2 so that we know this is working. And now we want to add our function of taking a screenshot. So whenever we say screenshot, we want it to screenshot it and save it over here in order with our notes. Okay, so my camera died, but I believe we were about to create our functions for the screenshot. So we will come down here. We're going to add another elif statement. We'll just add all this at the bottom so that way it is easier for us to see. So we can just say like elif, and if you notice, I actually have like this if right here. It could be an elif, and I think that's it. Okay, so we have this elif right here. Elif we say something else, we're going to want our program to do something. So we can say elif screenshot. So screenshot is in said. We want it to print to make sure that it's working, getting the shot, and we're going to want to save this to our desktop. So we can just say a screenshot dir is going to be the variable name, and we're going to say os.path and expand user just like we did before, and the path is going to be squiggly line desktop. So squiggly line desktop, and that is all going to need to be inside of quotes. And you can call your screenshot whatever you want. I'm just going to name it screenshot. So we'll just say file name equals screenshot. And that will actually all need to be inside of quotes as well. And we're going to save it as an extension. So extension, and we're going to save it as a .png. And again, I forget to keep putting my quotes around it. So now we have that saved. So now we're going to give it our full file path that we want to save this. And rather than having you watch me type all of that out, it is going to be the file path, the OS join, the screenshot, the base name plus the extension, and that's going to give us the file path with the name that we want to have it named. So that should give us the actual screenshot. So now we want to make sure, like if we want to do multiple screenshots, that it needs to check this file name, and if the file name is the same, we want it to save an additional file. So if we say screenshot on one tab and then we go to a different tab and we say we want to screenshot this for our notes, it will overwrite that previous screenshot if we don't add in an if statement. So we're going to say if os.path.exists with the file path, then we're going to add a counter, and we're going to say counter equals 1, and while os.path.exists, then we are going to delete the path, and we want to say the file path. Then we want to make a new file name, and it's going to be just the base file name, which is what we already created, and we're going to add it to a string, and we're going to add it with our counter. So this is going to add our counter at the end, plus the extension, which is going to give us the .png, and we're going to save it again to the file path. So and this is kind of long, so we'll just paste this in here. And so here it is, rather than having you watch me type all that out again. Okay, I just want to take this second here because I noticed when I was rewatching this video that I made a mistake and did not update it in the video. So right here we make this variable screenshot dir, and in the video you're going to see this says screenshot directory and that says screenshot directory. These both need to match this variable right here, so you will want to update your code so that it looks like this. That is the file path. It's going to be the OS file path, and it's going to join the screenshot, which we just created right here with the new file name, which is what we added right here. So we changed the base name and the extension, and we add in the counter plus the extension. And then after that, we want to add our counter plus 1. So that way next time if we do like 10 screenshots, it'll be screenshot number 10. So our counter equals plus equals 1. So that's going to add 1 to our counter each time this while loop runs that we actually take screenshots. Now we need to actually capture the screenshot. So after we run this if statement to make sure that the file doesn't exist, we want to create the actual function for it to capture the screenshot. So we're going to say capture the screenshot, and we're going to pass through the file path, and we're going to print, actually we'll have it tell us that this screenshot was saved. We'll say play audio, and we'll say screenshot was saved. Now let's go ahead and create the functions that we want this to call. So we actually created this capture screenshot, which is going to be function number 1. So we're going to say def and capture screenshot. We are going to pass through the file path, and we're going to say the screenshot equals the PyAuto GUI, which is going to actually capture the screenshot for us. And we want to capture a screenshot, and we're going to call that method, and we're going to say screenshot dot. Okay, so I just noticed that we need to move our function outside of our while loop and our screenshot dot save, and we're going to save to the file path. Okay, that has been quite a bit of file pathing, but if we save this, delete that line. Let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. So if we run this, screenshot.
Screenshot was saved.
It has saved our screenshot. Let's actually see what while loop we're running. It's going to record everything I'm saying, but we'll record a note. Make sure our while loop runs, then take a screenshot, and we will do all of this, and we'll do all of this in one run. So let's go ahead and run it. Screenshot.
Screenshot was saved.
Note.
What would you like to make a note about?
Point number 3.
Note saved successfully. Would you like to save another note?
Negative. And that runs the program. Our point number 3 was saved, and we have our screenshots taken over here. So it appears now that our program is working, and if we're out doing any kind of bug bounty hunting, penetration testing, or you're just doing a class project and you're reading an article or something, you can actually have your program running in the background. It'll be listening all the time. You can say note, you can take a note, or you can say screenshot of whatever's running on your computer, and it will screenshot that and save it to your desktop. So that is the program. If you'd like to see anything made in the future, please let me know down in the comments and we can try to get to those. Thanks for watching.